as you move through our program, you'll probably often hear one of the professors say, do a 3-line weight drawing. And what that's talking about, quite simply, is just the weight of and the thickness, the darkness of the line work that you apply to your sketch. And we'll do that as soon as we go through this exercise. We'll apply that here. And as a general rule, we've got a number of different tools here. As a general rule, you can think about line weight 1 as a Razorpoint, which is a felt tip pen. You can think about line weight 2. So I'll just put this in here. Think about line weight 2 as a Flair tip pen, which is a little bit heavier, a little bit darker. And you think about line weight 3 as the Sharpie, which is again a little bit darker. Now, the way to think about this, and I'm not sure, I think it was Randy Bartlett that came up with this spider idea. But if you have, if you want to think about where to apply certain lines, so if we look at a cube or if we look at a rectangular object, these edges that face us, they really shouldn't be very dark. They should be pretty light. Edges that have nothing behind them, maybe we want to pop those a little bit, so maybe they're a little bit darker. And then edges that are touching the ground that might have a shadow right next to them, those would be the darkest. So you've kind of got the 1, the 2, and the 3. We'll talk about the 3 line weight plus as we finish this. The 4th one would be construction lines, and then showing contour lines or section lines. But the way to think about it is those lightest lines, or line weight 1, if you've got a spider crawling along this object, and he's crawling along the edges, if you can see all 8 of the spider's legs, then it's going to be your line weight 1. So let's just say 8 legs. If you can only see 4 of the legs because he's kind of straddling that corner and half of his legs you don't see, then it's going to be 2. And if the spider has unfortunately met its demise because it's been squashed by the object and it's maybe touching the ground, then you're going to have the line weight 3. So the squash spider. And what I want you to do is, let's look at this, where you've got, this is an object, it's a 4 and then the letters line over here. And so all those are construction lines, but what I want you to do is I want you to go through this 4 and begin to apply. And with this, let's just use the Sharpie and the Flair tip, the Razorpoint, the Flair tip, and the Sharpie to do so. Typically what I'd like to do is I like to start with the 1 line weight. One other way to think about this, and what we have talked about in our exercises so far today, if we even go back to our warm-up exercises, what I've really tried to do is I just try and mimic some of this with lighter lines and heavier lines, and maybe even the heaviest line just by adding lines with my ballpoint pen. Let's see, so would I see a spider if this is a kind of a window within this 4? How many legs would I see of a spider here? And the answer is all 8. So this is just a line weight 1. Let's see, where else would I see 8? Let's see, this edge right here should be fairly light. Where else? Let's see. I think the underside of this cantilever portion of the 4. Within the ID, this is kind of recessed or embossed inside of this object. So I'd see 8 legs here and here. Here and here and along here. So I'm just going to be very careful. Not there. Here. Here's an inside surface. I still would see, and we can kind of go back over to this. This is like this. How many legs of this spider would I see? I would see 8. Same thing here and here. Now that we're getting into some of these other tools, and you may also notice ballpoint pens can bleed too, you just want to be careful that you're not dragging your drawing tool over freshly laid ink. Let's see, I'm going to see 8 legs there, and here, and here. Oh, that's not, oh. I have a construction line that goes all the way down, but this only comes down to here. Still see 8 legs on this part of that D, the inside of the D. But that transitions from where I would see 8 legs on that part of the D, but then this part is extending up, so as that spider walks over it, I'm going to start to see less legs. So that would actually be a line weight number 2. And I'll fix that a little bit later, just like this would be right here. If you'll notice right here, it's transitioning from a 1 line weight to where if the spider's on this portion of the bottom of the D, I see all 8 legs, and if you just continued walking around to here, I would only see 4, so it transitions from a 1 to a 2. And I'll show you one technique, a couple of different ways to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in. We'll grab the Flair tip, and I'll continue it over. There's not much of a difference there. Sometimes people put a dot. As it rolls around, this would be a 2. I'm only going to see 4 legs there. I'm only going to see 4 legs there. I'm only going to see 4 legs there. By the way, this exercise is a little bit overkill, but I just want you thinking about it this way. And this is not a hard rule, and that's kind of why I've said this is a 3 line weight plus. You know, use your best judgment. And I'll even say that sometimes I think Sharpie is not necessarily appropriate. It's a pretty heavy pen. Especially if you apply a lot of pressure. It compresses that tip down, and it can get pretty wide. Sharpie also is probably going to be the one thing that when we're drawing with it is going to bleed through to the other side. So just be aware of that, and be conservative in your use of Sharpie. Let's see. So let's just continue with this. This is going to be a line weight 2. This is the silhouette of my object. Some people like to put a little bit heavier weight on the silhouette of an object rather than other places where you might have a 2, a line weight 2, like on the back edge of these letters. Now here's where you do want to be careful. If I put a line in the wrong place, I can't really come back and adjust my drawing so that that mistake begins to disappear, which we can do with a lot of other things. We can do that with our construction lines when we're sketching freehand and ballpoint pen. So some people like to put, maybe a 2.5, whereas these lines would be just a 2. That's going to be a 1 right here. Some people would put a 2 here. They might go for the silhouette, they might make it a little bit heavier, and you'll notice I'm actually just going to go to this twice and maybe angle my pen just a little bit as I come back up so that it's got just a little bit heavier weight. Interestingly enough, these line up, but I want to pop that. I want to pop the top of the L. So I'm actually going to rotate my pen just a little bit and pop that out. Just fudging it a little bit. Right here I'm just putting 2 strokes down to kind of do that rather than pick up a different pen. I'm only seeing 4 legs of the spider there. I'm seeing 8 here and 8 here. This is almost my horizon line. Appears to be somewhere in here. And so this would actually be 2. This is like a cube straddling the horizon line, right? This would be a 2. But these, and it looks like I left out a little bit of this construction, which I'll draw in. Now, which would be the thickness of that E. You can see ever so slightly we've got 2 lines in there. And where I said some people like to put a 2.5 maybe to the outside, the silhouette of an object, some people like to even go less than 1 for these interior edges. let's see, the N, this, I see 8 legs, Here I see only 4. Let's see, where else do I have a number 1 line weight? Looks like right here, and right here, and then down here. There. I think that's all of my 1. So the 2, it's going to be there. And there. Here. Here, I'm missing a 1 there. And all right, and see how that just pops out from the original construction lines. The last thing that I want to talk about is we're going to talk about, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. We're going to talk about a 1/2. And that might be not quite, it might be really light. So take your, this would be something you might even use a ballpoint pen to show. But if we were going to do it with the Razorpoint, we can do it. Oftentimes we will define the surface of an object with lines that don't exist on the object, but as if you were taking a laser line guide and shining it on the front of this object. So I want to use this to define a little bit more of what's happening with the front surface of this object, and we call that section lines or contour lines. And so I'm going to think about, another way to think about it, you could either think about like a laser guide that's giving me a vertical line that's hitting the surface, or you could think about taking this thing and cutting it right down the middle, and what would that line look like if it was cut right down the middle. But I'm going to apply I'm going to think about this being right in the middle of that object. I'm going to apply kind of a 1/2 line weight, if I can. That's a little dark. Let's go with the ballpoint pen. But I'm cutting this thing in 1/2, so I would have a line right there, and then right underneath this spider, and then I'd have an angle here, and I'd have a line here, and that line would be in line here. There would be an angle up underneath. There would be a line going back towards the right vanishing point there, and then a line right in the middle there, and then lastly a line coming back towards the right vanishing point there. And that's a little dark. These are maybe that 1/2 line weight, right? So 1/2 line weight, something really light. But using those, and those might come through in the construction of your object, and you wouldn't need to add them after the fact. You might want to add them after the fact if you're being really precise and using tools, but it's just kind of that 3 line weight plus. I guess the last thing that I haven't done is I haven't added, did we? Did I add the Sharpie down there? I guess I did. Let's make it a little more bold. I did add it because I remember we bled through to the back. Some people will actually use this 3rd line weight as the silhouette. So we talked about how some people go 2.5 or make it a little bit darker. And again, these are all just kind of suggestions as to ways to add that.